I kind of hesitate to make this video because as a Canadian, I don't really feel that I'm all that entitled to make a video critical of the United States as itself, as just the United States, not just what America does, but what America is. Because I don't want it to be taken as just another anti-American rant by some Canadian. There's a long and very well-established tradition of anti-Americanism in Canada, probably more so than anywhere else on earth, and it's almost subconscious. So anything that I say that may actually be taken as a criticism of the United States in and of itself, not just a criticism of what America does, is unintentional, I assure you, and please put it down to my nurture as a Canadian and being fed the myths of Canada as a country that's not America. That's probably the biggest defining attribute of Canada, at least English Canada. We're not the Americans. So here we go. Wherever you go in the world, you'll see that interesting species of person, the disgruntled American, or even the anti-American American. You'll sit down at a bar in Cali, Colombia, or in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, or anywhere you happen to be. You'll run into an American who's just kind of sagging under the weight of all the dreadful things he believes that his country has done. There's a good possibility that he simply can't even live there anymore. It's gotten to be too much for him. His ideals are pretty much demolished, and he's been defeated. You also find that these sorts of people generally aren't just crazy loons who haven't thought this position out either. They're generally very thoughtful people, highly intelligent, and it took them probably their entire lives to get to the point where they are at when you meet them. Generally, things come up now like George Bush, the Iraq War, the war on drugs, the war on terror, paranoia, government intrusion in everything that anyone ever does, just a general conviction that the United States has gone right down the tubes, and there's very little that they can do about it, so they just turned their back on it and walked away. Well, okay, each individual is entitled to do something like that, but I wonder if that's actually a realistic conclusion to draw about the United States, or if it's a realistic set of broken expectations as to what any country can do in the real world. I agree that the United States, the foreign policy of the United States, or what its government does internally, and again, as an outsider, in as much as I'm entitled to say this, there's a lot to be questioned about it. There's a lot to be leery of. There's a lot to be, if I were an American, I suppose I might even be angry about it. But whatever you criticize the United States for is nothing that any country in its position hasn't done before. Its government, whatever the United States government does that you don't like, it's nothing that any other government wouldn't do either. So oftentimes I find that American anti-Americanism, or American disillusionment with itself, is kind of this sense of over-expectation, of believing that at one point in your life that America can actually be better than anywhere else, that they've actually fundamentally altered human nature through their institutions and through the things that America wants to do that's different, that's new in the world. And when those ideals, those high ideals, run up against reality, the realities of humanity, of human nature and human imperfection, a lot of Americans can't take it. It's too much. The sense of crestfallen idealism tends to really strike Americans particularly hard, more than anyone else. Well, okay, I understand. I'm not here to defend the Gulf War. I'm not here to defend the Iraq War. I'm not here to say that Vietnam was a noble cause, or that the United States government is a praiseworthy institution, or that America is God's gift to humanity. I'm not here to say that. I'm not here to say the opposite either, though. What I suppose I would like to say is, take it easy, because the United States is populated by human beings, and human beings are notoriously imperfect. So when the United States does things that you don't like, or when the U.S. government does things that you don't like, if you ask me, the trick is to make sure that you're not shocked by it. because that's what I think kind of breaks the American and turns him into either a paranoid John Birch type militiaman, or the brain-dead, couch potato, burger chomping, reality TV watching, stereotypical bum who just doesn't care about anything. He's been brainwashed, and he's glad he's brainwashed. Or the disillusioned idealist. These are all sort of types that really kind of don't really exist in the real world. But they've all got that one thing in common. Things have gotten too much for them, gotten to be too much, so they can't take it. And they have to, turn the button to off at some point or other. Again, that's understandable that some people would go that way. But what I would say is it is kind of a case of unrealistic expectation, and it's a case of allowing yourself to be shocked by every new development that comes along. Americans often have an unrealistic sense of their own personal ability to control the destiny of their country. Well, first of all, there's 250 million Americans, each one of them with strong opinions. Of course, they're never going to be able to agree on what the U.S. government should do. It's just what happens when you don't get your way, or that things don't go in a way that you like, or things go in a way that shock you. Timothy McVeigh, the guy who blew up the Oklahoma City government, the federal government building a while back, simply snapped over the Branch Davidian thing in Waco, Texas, when the federal government ham-fistedly stormed in and took over that compound of some people who may or may not have been doing things that warranted some sort of intervention. It was just too much for him. He thought that the U.S. government was completely out of control, and he had to do something about it, and he did something absolutely atrocious. I'm not saying that everyone who's sort of disillusioned with the United States as an American is of this ilk. I'm not saying that if that guy sitting there in his Hawaiian T-shirt getting slowly drunk in a bar in Lagos is actually Timothy McVeigh. But the same sense of disillusionment and kind of bottled rage is in him as much as it was in McVeigh. I'm not saying that there won't be things to get mad about along the road, but again, the point that I'm making is you have to anticipate them, and you have to see that in the real world, lousy things happen. So if the United States government does something that you don't like in your own personal life, or if the United States foreign policy is not going in a way that you don't that you approve of, well, I think that it's a lot healthier to just sort of say, okay, I don't like this. How am I personally going to adapt to this? And what can I do about it? Well, you can do what you can do about it, but getting angry about it and giving up on the entire thing, or getting paranoid about it, which probably is the worst of the options, is to get paranoid, is actually about as useful as getting paranoid about getting hit by lightning, or getting run over by a bus, or getting cancer, or any number of disasters that could potentially befall anyone. There's only so much you can do to control the destiny of your country. There's only so much you can do about what your government does. There's only so much you can do to protect your own liberty against an overbearing U.S. government, if that's the way you see it. And yes, maybe one day you will fail. One day you as a person will be incapable of preventing things from crossing that line that you've drawn. Maybe things, America will go too far in the world. But I think that the point that I'm trying to make is anticipate the possibility of these things happening. That way you're not shocked. That way you're not pushed over that line without really realizing it. Again, it's just what America has done, what America is, what America has become, what the government has become, shouldn't really surprise anybody. Because again, the United States is made up of human beings. But a lot of people, it's too much for them. And I think that it's just, I'm not saying that it's their fault, but I think that they're looking at the entire picture unrealistically. They're expecting things to, it strikes me as people are expecting things to be good, and whenever something bad happens, they're shocked and appalled and kind of disoriented by it. Things are going to happen that are lousy. They really are. They're going to continue to happen. But look at the whole picture, okay? Now here's where you might be surprised as a Canadian that I'm going to say this, but somebody's got to be in this world in the position of the United States of America. Somebody's got to be the big shot. It's ludicrous to think that the world could be any other way, because it's never been any other way. Who else do we want occupying that position? Answer that question honestly, and you'll see that the United States really, as the United States, as itself, isn't so bad after all. Thank you.